Alrighty, hello everybody. Today we are going to be reviewing the first movie in a very long series of movies. There's been, what, six, I think? Let's see, one, two, three, four, five. Oh yeah, six, including Rocky Balboa. Wow, it's kind of crazy that, it's very weird seeing the ratings of these, right? Like, they were all of the other movies were 14A right up until Rocky Balboa, where it went to PG. Hmm, interesting. It says 14A or G, so I don't know whether that means it was 14A in some countries and for general audiences in others. Weird. I'm not really sure how that works exactly. But this is the 40th anniversary edition of all these movies. Um, Now, I've had this collection for a few years, so I don't really know how, like, I guess 19. When did the first one come out? 1976, so I guess 2016 would have been the 40 years, right? Yeah, 76, 86, 96, 2006. Oh no, 2006 would have been, no. 76 to 86, that's 10. Yeah. 86 to 96, that's 20. 96 to 2006, that's 30. Okay, so yeah, so 2016 would have been the 40-year anniversary. So have I really had these that long? And I've been sitting on them for almost, for, since 2016? Holy crap. And I guess now is kind of a good time to be watching them anyway, seeing as the Creed trilogy, I think, might be coming to an end, and I'm not really sure. Maybe there'll be 6 Creed movies for all we know. Michael B. Jordan's still like in his 40s, so or close to 40 or in his 40s, so he could probably make a few more movies as far as that goes. Because I guess he's directing the third one completely on his own without Sylvester Stallone's help. I do believe, anyway. Let's just see, Creed 3. I don't think I don't think Sylvester Stallone had anything to do with this one. Yeah, director Michael B. Jordan. Let's just see. Was Stallone a writer? Nope. Was he a producer? Oh, okay, he was. But I guess, from what I've seen online anyway, it says that Sylvester Stallone didn't like the direction this film took. Um, I guess maybe he might have been a writer on the other two, possibly. I'm not really sure how the Creed series went because, again, I've never seen them. So um, let's just see if he was a writer in the. Now I know he was in the first one. Was he in the second one? So he acted in it as well. I feel like he was probably based on characters. Okay. Oh, okay, so Sylvester Stallone was a writer in the first one. Okay, that makes more sense. But then he was just a producer on the third one. So I guess I can kind of see why maybe it took a different direction because it was written by other people as opposed to. Because he was in the second one as well, right? He actually acted in the second one. Yeah, so who were the writers on. Yeah, okay. So Sylvester Stallone was a writer on the second one as well. Interesting. So he had no writing in the third Creed movie. That is kind of interesting to see. So he was just a producer. So yeah, that would be why he said that he didn't like the direction it took. I still think it'll be a good movie, but I mean, I think Sylvester Stallone probably should have had some sort of, uh, probably should have had something to do with the writing of the third one as well. Because I don't think he should have any problem with the directing style. I guess we'll see what the third movie brings now that I'm watching all of these. But today we are talking about the movie that started this entire franchise, Rocky. And we start out with. Now I know that Sylvester Stallone has been on his daughter's podcast lately, and he talks about like kind of how rough of a life he had when he was younger, like growing up on the streets and such. And I almost think that kind of shows a little bit in this movie. So maybe that was, maybe some of this was kind of like what his life was actually like back then. Because I think he didn't really make it big until like the Rambo series, and that wasn't until like the 1980s, right? Because this is way back in 1976. So what was, yeah, let's just see, when was Rambo? Because I believe it was like 1980s. Rambo, Rambo. Yeah, it was in the 1980s. Rambo New Blood. Okay, a TV series. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, when was the first Rambo? 19... Oh, 1982. Yeah, so he didn't really make it big until Rambo. So I guess in 1976 was when Rocky came out. Interesting. So yeah, some of this might have actually been like what his living conditions were like, because he kind of lived in like the ghetto of, I believe it was supposed to be New York, was where he was, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, Philadelphia, sorry, my bad. So he was in Philadelphia, but he was kind of in like a very run-down part of town, and it seemed that he was, I guess, I don't really know how long boxers would have been, like how long a boxer's career really goes for. I guess it depends on how well you're doing and how much you're getting hit and so on and so forth. Now, I know some of them obviously last like late into the 30s, early 40s. That seems to be around the time most fighters stop fighting and maybe take on a different career path, because it's hard on the body, right? Especially boxing, because you're just constantly getting shot in the head, it seems, and with other uh, combat sports like mixed martial arts, there's a lot more to it, right? So, I mean, I know boxing is kind of like a fundamental of MMA as well. Like you have to be a good striker. You have to, but you do have to mix up way more in MMA than you do in boxing. Like boxing is all just shots to the head or the body, and there really is no in between. So at this point in his career, Rocky would be 30. That's what he says for the movie, and he has this love interest, Adrian, who works at this pet shop, and he has to come in there every day for turtle food. Well, he doesn't have to, but he comes in there every day for turtle food to make a joke when he's on the way to train and when he's on the way home, um, which I find kind of funny because he really does like this girl. And her brother, uh, what was her brother's name? I believe her brother's name was Polly, wasn't it? Oh, oh. Okay, I think I'm good now. I do believe her brother's name was Polly, if I'm remembering correctly. And you would think he would be... Oh, there he is, there. Okay, wow, he just looks a lot different in this photo compared to, interesting. Huh, funny. Compared to, what he looked like back then, hey? I guess they all do. Sylvester Stallone kind of looks the same, just older. Like, he's really changed in looks. And so has, Talia Shire, who played Adrian. So yeah, I guess I should go through the cast list, hey? Sylvester Stallone played Rocky Balboa. Talia Shire played Adrian. Burt Young played Polly. Carl Weathers played Apollo Creed. Burge Meredith played Mickey. Who was Jurgens? Oh, I guess maybe they were the two. They must have been the two guys. Okay, so Thayer Davis played Jurgens. Joe Spinzel played Gazzo. And Jimmy Gambina played Mike. And that was pretty much the main cast. Okay. So yeah, Sylvester Stallone is probably like in the, I guess he started out, seems like when he was 20. So the owner of the gym, Mickey, doesn't really think much of him. And then Apollo Creed comes into town, the heavyweight champion who's going to be fighting in Philadelphia, and his opponent ends up getting an injury before the fight, and his manager can't find another opponent. None of them want to fight Apollo Creed. It seems everybody's ducking him, as they would say these days. So Apollo Creed comes up with this plan that he's going to give this nobody a shot at the heavyweight title. So they're looking through all the local boxers in Philadelphia, and they find Rocky Balboa. But it wasn't because of the Rocky Balboa name; it was because of the Italian Stallion, and Apollo Creed knew that everybody would eat that up, so that's who he picked to fight. Little did he know that Rocky was going to take this fight pretty seriously. And it seemed that Rocky had kind of become like the showman, like the one who was supposed to lose all the time. And yeah, all of a sudden it seemed when Rocky got the shot that Mickey came around and told him that he needed a manager. And I guess when Mickey was in his prime in his boxing career, he never really had a manager, so he ended up losing a lot of his fights. So that's what Mickey says to him, that he wants to be his manager. So, of course, Rocky gets kind of upset with him because he says, "Why weren't you there for me 10 years ago? You should have been," sort of thing. And it seems like he's not going to let Mickey, and then Rocky has this big fit in his apartment and goes after him and so on and so forth, and lets him be the manager and train him to fight Apollo Creed. Now, I guess Apollo had thought that this was just going to be another showing, right? He was going to get this nobody to just kind of throw the fight and make him look good, land a few punches in to make it look like it was an actual fight. But I don't think he expected Rocky to go all 15 rounds with him. Now, I don't think there's any boxing fights anymore that are 15 rounds. I don't even know if that's actually a real thing or whether they just kind of did that for the movie to make it seem a little more kind of fantastic for Hollywood. I think that might have been. I don't really think there was any. I don't think there's ever been a 15-round fight. Now, maybe they might do an extra round if it's tied after 12. I'm not really sure. But I don't think this fight was. Now, obviously, they both looked pretty battered at the end of the fight and they could barely stand. But I would say this fight was pretty one-sided for most of it because Rocky has, like, almost literally no defense. Like, he was throwing it up a lot when he was getting hit, like, with pretty good combos, but most of the time his hands were down and he was getting shot up by the jab through most of the fight. So it's important to keep your hands up in some sort of form to block, and I know it's hard to block like both your head and your body, but it seems like maybe even keeping your hands here to kind of protect both would make more sense. Now, I know you can still get your temple shot up a little bit, but taking a shot to the nose or jaw probably hurts a little bit more than the temple. Now, I know if you hit in the right spot in the temple, you're still going down anyway, but yeah, protect your noggin and your body, especially in boxing, because you don't keep on getting constantly hit, or else you're not going to have any brain cells left to for later on in life to carry on, especially if you want to have longevity in fighting. Yeah, you really got to protect yourself. And, head movement is important, and Rocky didn't really have a lot of that. He wasn't really, he did keep out of the way of a couple of, like, really heavy shots that Apollo threw, but he could never, like, duck the jab or roll it off his shoulder, which I see a lot of boxers do. They really roll their shoulders well to cushion the shots or throw the shot off their shoulder so that they're not getting hit in the head. And that's a good way if you're a really good counter striker to get in a couple shots, even to the body, while you're rolling the shot off your shoulder, right? Anyway, so the fight does go 15 rounds, and by the end of it, Adrian and Rocky are obviously together, and Rocky has this realization after doing all this training and going to the boxing ring and seeing the photos up. He goes back to his place where Adrian is and says, "There's no way I can beat There's no way I can beat Apollo Creed. So all Rocky's trying to do is prove that he can go the entire 15 rounds with Apollo Creed and prove his worth, sort of thing. And at the end of the fight, Apollo does win by split decision, which I think is kind of fair because he probably did. He probably landed way more shots than Rocky did, and did, I would say, quite a significant amount of more damage. Even though both their faces were pretty busted up by the end of the fight, I would say that Apollo probably did win that fight, just on strikes landed and significant strikes alone. Just based on how the two of them looked by the end of the fight. So, even though Rocky did land some pretty significant body shots at the end of the 14th, and probably ended up breaking Apollo's ribs from the looks of it, and almost got him out in the 15th round. I will say that. He almost did. So he kind of stole the last round from Apollo, but I would say it wasn't enough to win him the fight. Now I'm judging a movie fight, hey? Kind of funny. He calls, there is, Rocky obviously doesn't want the rematch. Neither does Apollo. Rocky feels like he's probably proved himself enough, so he's just calling Adrian into the ring at the end of the movie. And then she finally says, "I love you." And he says, "I love you back." And that's where the movie ends. So I'm not really sure. I can't remember how I know there's a rematch in the second movie because I can see it here. I just can't remember how the storyline goes where they end up rematching. But I think probably Apollo Creed would definitely want to prove that he's the better fighter, and in the first match, it definitely showed that Rocky wasn't just a nobody. So he definitely made a name for himself by hanging in there with a heavyweight champ for that many rounds. So I gave this movie a 7 out of 10. I know it wasn't. I know probably people would rate it a little bit better. I guess it got. This is probably the first movie I think I've rated. I shouldn't say that. It's probably not the first movie I've rated lower than the rating on IMDb. It might be one of the very few that I've rated lower. So I give this a 7 out of 10. Now I know it's kind of the one that started the franchise, but I felt like it wasn't really the greatest movie of all time. It felt like the build-up was good, but it felt slow at certain points. A lot of it was just, it felt like a pretty big training montage, right? And I know that's kind of maybe, now obviously fighters have to train for fights, right? But it felt more like a training montage, and they could have definitely lengthened it a little bit at the end to show more of the fight, I feel, which is maybe the direction, if I'm remembering correctly, the direction they take in the future films where they show more of the fight. Yeah, because it seemed like they dragged out the training for a very, very long time. Now, I know obviously you're trying to get to know the fighter's backstory a little bit, and obviously this is like an introduction into Rocky, so I guess it kind of makes sense that they told a little bit more about like who he was as a person, and he was working as like a hired help for this probably gangster dude named Gazzo, who gave him money and saw the potential in him and sort of thing, but he was working as hired muscle for him, and threatening people to give Gazzo their money that they owed him. So yeah, he definitely got a pretty hefty paycheck for back in the 1970s for fighting the heavyweight champion, because it was like $150K that he got, so he could probably finally make something of himself and get a better apartment, and so on and so forth. But other than that, yeah, 7 out of 10 for this movie. And I guess I will see you guys in the next review. Bye-bye for now.